Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Spilling the Beans. Today I'm sitting down with DeMuesy. He is the guy who oversees my social media on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And so I'm going to sit down with him, hear a little bit about his journey. I've known Jed since college, 2003, so almost 20 years now. We've been very, very good friends for a long time. There was an opportunity for him to kind of come on board with us a couple years ago, and we jumped on it. So I want to hear a little bit about his story, and then we're going to dive into some social media strategies, things that work, and kind of things to pay attention to if you're looking to create content. So let's sit down. Let's go meet up with Jed. Jed DeMuesy, what's up, buddy?
Hey.
Welcome.
How's it going? So this is my first appearance, but the longest I've known you. But we've got some other ones coming up, so I won't be the longest.
My dad's going to be longer.
Yeah.
If we end up doing a Spill the Beans with him, he'll get you on that one.
Did I know you before Kate? I think I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got Kate.
Yeah, you got Kate.
Okay.
And then
so as long as I can figure out a way to keep your dad off of this show.
Yeah. Then you got the longest standing relationship with me of any guest that's been on Spill the Beans.
There you go.
So,
of course, you knew Matt Carlin and Fatty beforehand.
Oh, that's a good point.
So
I haven't known them longer. Yeah, I have. You lose.
I lose already. After saying that I had won.
At best, you're in third place.
Yeah, there you go.
So I've known Jed for 20 years, almost 20 years this fall. Went to college together, met in freshman dorm, and been buddies for a long time. I was a marketing major. Jed was a mass communications major, which I want to get into. I want to talk about communicating styles, and I think that'd be a good value add. And Jed's been in the news and news anchoring, news reporting, sports industry for a long time, and came on full-time 2 years ago?
Yeah, March of 21.
So why don't you share your story, dude? Why am I sharing your story for you?
We met college. We, our group of friends was, pretty close to this day. I mean, we just this past, year or March went to your legacy mountain, the lodge, and had a good time with the guys. So we sort of established a friendship with a lot of dudes.
We got a good crew for a long time.
We did.
Like it's really unique to see that, how we've stayed friends. Like I'm still very close friends with all my high school buddies, and I'm very close friends with all my college buddies. You're close friends with your high school buddies and close friends with your college buddies. Why do you think so many other people grow apart as opposed to stay close friends?
I think it was kind of established sort of, and I don't know if I was drawn to this in college, but there was a real emphasis on loyalty in our high school groups that, if a girl says something to you third period about one of your friends, you're going to tell that guy fifth period, I mean, just that kind of stuff, and sort of establishing that, hey, if you're my friend, this is what that means, and I don't expect you to not do anything that I don't like, but I expect you to sort of make good on it, or to at least take ownership of what you did, and attempt to continue the friendship. So I think it was huge for me, and to have that type of friendship. I remember there's always that pull when you go to college to join a fraternity. Yeah. And sort of, hey, let's get in the room with these people, and let's and that just didn't appeal to me, because even though you had to figure that out kind of early on, I kind of looked around and saw the group that we had, even though it wasn't established in that way yet, as a pretty solid group. So eternally grateful for the friendships that I made, you and so many others over the years, whether it be high school or college. So I think a lot of people get driven apart because they don't have that foundation. And when other things, as they often do, pop up in life, whether it's marriage or kids, or you move across the country, those things can separate you if you don't have that that baseline.
Well, understanding, and what I'm hearing is you talking about core values, right? Like what what are guiding principles of how
Right.
you develop and maintain relationships. And for us, it's always been very much, excuse me, and for us, it's always been very much about that loyalty piece and saying, hey, even after school, we're going to hang out, or even after this, and I think after college, you do the hang out and everybody goes to Vegas or everybody visits each other and you don't have really deep, spousal relationships yet. And then, so you're still seeing all your boys and traveling, and then all of a sudden everybody starts getting engaged and married, but then you still have the bachelor parties, right? And the weddings where you see everybody. So you have that whole period really throughout, I don't know, till we get turned 30 or whatever. And then I think there was a lull for a little bit, and then now that the kids are not, they're a little bit more grown. Now we're all like, hey, we need to get back to doing annual get-togethers or a couple times a year or whatever. So yeah, it's been good, man. And we all stay in contact, and that's fun. Talk a little bit about mass communications, some of the skills you learned there, how that transitioned into the sports and news anchoring industry, and then now that, and why you transitioned out of that and into, more the entrepreneurial, startup, small business kind of realm, and like how those things have differed.
Sure, you're obviously the only reason why I transitioned out, but we can start kind of at the beginning. The one thing I learned, and this is obviously something that Trevor said as well, Trevor West in his Spill the Beans episode, and I think probably also on his class in Legacy Wealth Academy, is that the quicker you can relay something effectively, the better. You cannot expect really to be taken seriously as a communicator if you can't get across what you're trying to say in a brief manner. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what you want to look at in terms of people's attention spans, the idea that you cannot quickly get to a point will hurt you in terms of communicating. And there's no better sort of incubator for that than television sports, because you only have 3 minutes, or they will go to commercial. They're not giving you, oh, well, wait, I just wanted to say, and if you have a certain amount of time to convey a certain amount of points, you have to figure out how to talk. You have to figure out how to get that all across in the time that you're given. I remember when I interned at a station I ended up working for, I came in, thought I knew everything, and they initially told me to be brief and to cut my words down, and that this had to be 20 seconds, and what I'd written it was 40. But then as I progressed in the internship, and I thought that I was sort of getting the hang of it, I would write scripts, and then they would delete them at 10:45, and then they would say, hey, weren't you writing? There's nothing in here. And I had written it at 8 o'clock, and now it's 15 minutes until showtime, and I've got to rewrite it. And they did that to sort of get me to a place where not only am I writing succinctly, but I can do it, in a way that, even though I feel like I have that pressure.
Well, you got a constraint put on you, right? We talk about constraints a lot. They put a constraint on you, and you're like, when you get constrained like that of having to convey a message, you don't start thinking about these secondary and tertiary type thoughts. You're like, what is the primary point that I need to get across? Because I can't even think about that stuff because I'm on in 15 minutes. Like, I just need to hit on A, B, and C, right? And it forces you to be much more efficient.
Right, and then you sort of, you figure out how to get the information across, and then you can figure out within still those time constrictions how to be funny or how to be witty or how to say something in a way that the people across the street aren't saying, because you still have to be unique in your messaging. You can't just rely on the fact that you're giving the information, especially in this day and age when it comes to sports on television. At 11 o'clock at night, everybody has the ability to know everything that I'm going to tell them anyway, because the Reds game ended at 10:30. Anything that I can add has to have a uniqueness to it. Otherwise, people aren't going to tune in for very long because they've already got the information. So it's got to be unique, and it's got to be succinct, and probably in that reverse order. It's got to be succinct before it's unique.
So when I first got started in business, I applied for this program, this mentorship program through Goldman Sachs called 10,000 Small Businesses. And they take like a cohort of, I can't remember, 40 different businesses. a couple times a year, and they take you through. I think it's a 9-week program talking about all these things. Dude, day one is exactly what you were talking about. It's everything you do in business needs to be efficient, effective, and bold, right? Effective meaning communicate the information. Here's what I want to tell you. Efficient meaning do it in the shortest timeline possible and as the fewest amount of words as possible. And bold, it needs to be memorable. It needs to get somebody's attention. It needs to maintain their attention because they could probably get the information somewhere else. And everything that we did, every presentation we did, every written report that we had to submit, anything like that had to be efficient, effective, and bold. And it's interesting how that was the fundamental underlying principle of your undergraduate degree, your internship, and your career.
Yeah.
And also with Goldman Sachs Small Businesses, and you see how important that is, and especially in how that's transpired in moving over to like social media. Dude, they don't want long form content anymore, right? Like the 2 hour, 5 hour, whatever, however long they are, videos, like those get pushed to the bottom of the algorithm. They want the short form content.
Right.
How can we get somebody's attention in 30 seconds or 1 minute or 3 minutes?
Or 10 seconds.
Or 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, some of our best TikToks are 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So, and the other part is too, is that even if you are speaking for an hour or speaking for 90 minutes, outlining what you want to say and still staying within those parameters. Just because you have an hour to talk, you shouldn't kick your feet up and say, "Oh, I can go a little longer on this topic." No. You still have to sort of stay relevant, unique, and succinct within that. We always joke. Sharon and I, my wife, always joked. When we go, I am very, very critical of best man speeches when I would go to weddings. And to the point where Sharon would be like, "You're such a snob, like this guy's doing the best he can," and blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's just not like, I'm totally lost. By the time we get to sort of like, the college experience, I'm sort of lost with this guy. And I had, obviously you have two brothers, so I wasn't your best man, and I certainly bear no ill will there at all for any reasons whatsoever.
Why would we even bring it up 10 years later?
Sure, no, of course not. But I had an opportunity to give a best man speech for a friend of mine, and I took a lot of pride in it. And even though it was a longer thing, you still have to sort of take people with you, and you can't expect people to be interested that long unless you give them a reason to be. Mm-hmm. And Sharon was giving me a very hard time because I had really sort of been a snob about those speeches. And I think when I handed the microphone back to the DJ, he said, "This is the best man speech that I've ever heard in my 25 years of being a DJ." Wow. Which I'm sure he says to everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
But that gave me enough clout with my wife to sort of. But that's, even if you're speaking at a best man speech, even if you're speaking at a conference, regardless of how much time they want you to take, still maintaining those principles is key.
Yeah. I'm getting thrown off on thoughts a little bit here because we're not filming in front of a daycare. That's not what we do. We're at a cafe next to a daycare with nice views, and we just happen to be looking that way because the sun is too far out. And they're on a little recess break right now and just blaring Frozen 2. So, well, now we're on Frozen 1. They were on Frozen 2 before, now it's Frozen 1.
Your knowledge of those movies is stunning.
I would say Frozen 2 is one of the best Disney movies of all time.
For the sequel. Typically, sequels are not as good.
It smokes the first one. It smokes most other Disney movies.
Wow.
It's really, really good. Anyways.
So, after school, I took a bunch of random jobs. I eventually made my way back to Cincinnati. And
not random jobs. You moved from studio to studio, from new station to new station, moving up the ladder in size of market. Correct.
So eventually in 2013, made my way to Cincinnati to the station that I interned. And that was kind of it for me. I thought, I'm going to work here for another 40 years.
Now we're going to wait for somebody to die or get fired in order to get promoted, right?
Well, there were a bunch of people who were promoted ahead of me, even though they were fired, and I still kind of didn't make my way up, which was very, I knew I had to work my way up, but I think at one point it got to a point where it was like, I feel like I'm a lot better than this person. And I have a hard time saying that, but there were a lot of times where I thought, and then you see people in the television industry give 20, 30 years and they're given 15 seconds at the end of a broadcast and they're gone forever. There's a cake in the newsroom that's, your standard sheet cake that you get when you turn 12, and that's it. I was staring down the barrel of eventually not being appreciated at all, and nobody really having much of a problem with that. So, and I think one of the other things is that was the end of, I had worked to that point in that industry to get back to the place that I was in 2013. I didn't really have any aspirations to go to a bigger market. That was kind of it for me. That's kind of what I saw as the end. And I think when you get in that mindset that, oh, this is the only place I've ever wanted to be, you start to atrophy a little bit. And when you realize that, you think, oh, I've worked in this market and I've worked in this market, and once I get to this place, the problems that I've had will evaporate. And it's the same stuff everywhere.
It's like that in business, man. Hey, if I could just get to this point, if I could just get to that point, right? And you think like everything's taken care of. If you just, no, it's different, right? It's different types of problems. Maybe they're bigger problems when you get to the bigger markets or the bigger business or the bigger,
Yeah, and having a lot of eyes, you have more eyes on what you do. You're required to do a lot more. You have more teams. I'm going from covering high school sports in Zanesville, Ohio, to now I'm in professional locker rooms with the Bengals and the Reds and big college basketball teams. And there's a lot more required of you as far as that goes. And all of that was a thrill. But I think if I wouldn't have gotten married and had kids, I could potentially see myself still doing that. But working from 3 to midnight, 5 days a week, including weekend. I mean, weekends are when the sports happen. Yeah. And working that time and that shift, I know there are people who do it, and I have a lot of respect for them, and a lot of them are my friends. But there was just a point in time where I said, "Do I really want to do this forever? Mm-hmm. And can I justify what I'm going to lose in order to do that? What I'm going to have to sacrifice?" Not only me, but what I'm now asking other people, my wife, my children, to sacrifice so that I can be on TV for three minutes a night.
Priorities change, right? You don't think about that when you're first getting into a career or starting a business, and you got to realize that life happens, and as it happens, you need, like most people who start a business, for instance, don't have an exit strategy. Well, guess what? One day you're going to want to retire. One day you're going to want to take a vacation. Yeah. One day you're going to want to, you need an exit strategy, and you need to understand what that looks like, or to think a little bit in the future, so that way you can plan accordingly. And it's hard to do. It's hard to know how much your priorities shift once you get married, and once you have kids, and once you have, you experience life, and you realize that there's more to it than what I'm doing. And so. So that brings us to, all right, so we started working together on a part-time basis, and then there was an opportunity for you to jump ship, right?
Yeah, we got an email. Our company, our parent company, owns stations across the country, and I think there was an email on a Wednesday night that said, we're cutting 5% of the workforce. So that will affect your station. There will be people that who will not have a job in the morning. And at that point, Sharon, you and I had talked about, I had a contract through the summer of 2022, which you and I were sort of spitballing about
this is in March of 21.
This is in March of 21. So I'm still under contract through July of 2022.
And you would have been working with us on a part-time basis for 4, 5, 6 months.
And I had no intention of re-signing. I think the potential end was that 2022, and then I would have come on full time. But you and I were talking about a buyout of my deal, and it's a prorated portion of what was left, and at the time it was way too much.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Something.
So we had talked about when would be a sweet spot for that to happen, so that I could come on sooner. And then this falls into the lap, and that Wednesday night, I didn't want to show my hand at that point because we were only a sports department of 4 people, and I was making the third most money in that 4-person department and probably doing the most work. So I thought if they're going to cut somebody, it's not going to be me, so I don't want to tell them that I want to leave. So the next day comes along, and the 4th person in our department, the only person who made less money than I did, was the one that was fired. So at that point, I thought maybe I can ask them to go instead. And I talked to Sharon about it, and she said, well, you got to call Tim. You got to get Tim on the phone. You were not. I think I called at maybe 10 a.m. and you didn't pick up. I left you a message and said, hey, I've got something to talk about.
I don't know what I was doing, man. I was probably golfing or something.
I think it ended up you were doing something with the island or the mountain house or something.
Yeah,
but
trip. Working on it.
I said, hey, I got to talk to you. Call me when you can. And I'm like, all right, I'm leaving for work at 2:00. I need to have a sense of what's going on. I've got some time for Tim to get back to me. Didn't call. I didn't want to go into work without telling my boss that this is what I wanted to do. And so I got in the shower, and I had cut enough videos of you that you were talking to me while I was showering, and you were basically saying, take massive action. Go, if you want your life to change, you have to be the catalyst for that. You have to be the one to take action. So even though I didn't talk to you, I heard enough of what I was editing.
That's right. I love it.
I said to Sharon, as soon as I was getting ready for work, I said, I'm going to tell them I want to leave. And the other part is I didn't know if they would let me. I didn't know that part of it, but I did think that the longer I wait to ask, the less of a chance that they'll let me. Mm-hmm. So I called my news director, whose name is Tim also, and he said, I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe you're calling, because this is less than a year after.
You essentially said, hey, why don't you let me, if you're firing this guy, I'll voluntarily leave. Just give me the same severance package or whatever.
Well, it ended up being a little bit more just because of my seniority. But yeah, I basically said, we didn't even talk about that. He was so floored that I wanted to leave, because about a year before that, I was trying to get the job that I was currently in, saying, this is the only place I've ever wanted to be. You don't have to worry about me, kind of thing. And they ended up giving that job to me. So he said, all right, I'll talk to whoever I need to talk to. He talked to them. They called me after the 6:00 show, and he said, our general manager is willing to do it if that's something you still want to do, and made it very clear. He said, when I hang up this phone, I'm calling the person that we were planning on firing, so there's no coming back from this. I still had yet to talk to you. And so we did it. It happened, and your string of text messages probably looked something like, call me, call me, call me. I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. Hey, I'm ready to come on full time.
Okay.
So that night, I think you called later that night, and I was just, you talk a lot about the stories you tell yourself when you don't have that information. And I thought, did I overstep? Have I now put myself in a position we just had the one kid at that point, what's going to happen? And I'll never forget that phone call, because as worried as I was about it, I told you that whole story, and you said, yeah, it's fine. We make stuff work all the time. We'll get you the paperwork. We'll figure it out. This wasn't what I was planning on, but we'll make it work. And I was just like, okay, thank goodness, I don't have to worry about that aspect of it.
Well, it shows that, dude, you weren't again, stories in our head, and it's going to be way worse. It's never as bad as we make it up to be in our head, and so that's a big deal. Well, that's lesson number one. Number two is knowing that, like, we would figure things out, right? Like, hey, I didn't get to talk to Tim, but I know Tim's good for it, right? Because of our prior existing relationship, that we would figure out something. And
but I certainly didn't want to lean on that. I didn't want to lean on the idea that Tim and I have been friends for so long, so he's going to make this work for me. But you did, and that was a struggle initially in my head. That was a struggle coming on full time. what are these other people who I don't know going to think about Tim's friend coming on? How do I figure out a way to make sure that they understand that I just want to be a part of the team? I don't want to be Tim's buddy that, you know, runs to Tim and tattles every little thing that's said, or Tim, did you hear this about this person? No, I want to work. I want to be a part of the team. I want to learn. I want to fit in. I don't want to be the person that everyone thinks they can't say something to, or that, you know, or they're going to go run and tell Tim. So that was a big part of coming on board.
Is there a lot of politicking behind my back? Does that happen?
And again,
Cam,
like I
is there a lot of
said,
things said?
there's not, but again, not knowing the environment, and I couldn't have walked into a more healthy work environment, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was going to be working with, and all I knew
You're trying
is
to pinpoint who you wanted to kill or get fired. Right?
well, that's what I used to do.
I know.
Right? I mean, the television news
All right,
business
let's
is
get a
very
landscape.
it's very cutthroat, and so just making sure that people were aware of, going back to my values, what I stood for and what I was going to bring to the table. In addition to not really knowing anything, you didn't ever seem to be concerned about me not knowing.
Dude, that's the least of my concerns when I hire
digital
somebody.
marketing.
When I hire somebody, I hire them for attitude and core values, right? And obviously, you know, if they're coming into a specific role, I think it's important to have at least a baseline. But dude, I don't know. We were figuring out social media anyways. We didn't really know, and you knew way more about it than I did, and so like, and you have a willingness to learn, right?
Sure.
A willingness to, and I knew that you wouldn't drop the ball on it, right? Because we've known each other. I know what you stand for. I know what you care about, and I knew that we'd figure it out together. And so I wouldn't expect, you to know 100% of the information on, and it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving industry.
Yeah,
also.
the minute you think you know everything is when everything changes, and developing a strategy, now over 2 years is still very much an ongoing situation. And
which is why, like, the willingness to learn and the willingness to adapt and that is more important, especially for this type of a role, than here's what I currently know. And dude, you know enough about social media, videography, editing, and some of that stuff where that's all we need is a baseline. Guess what? For the first 10 years I was doing social media, it was me on a camera like this with no editing, with no actual video cameras, with nothing like that. And it was just social media post, a Facebook post, and a Facebook Live, and that was it. And we were able to develop it from there. So I knew that as long as it was better than that, we'd be moving places, we'd be going places. And more importantly than anything, was just I needed somebody to keep me consistent on the social media, as opposed to me being responsible for doing a video every day. I'd rather shoot a bunch of videos and then have it deployed over the course of a week, so that way I could batch activities. And that was very, very helpful in having you on board too.
And I think that consistency piece is where you have to start, because...
So let's talk about social media. Let's give some key takeaways of what you've learned overseeing my social media for the past 2.5 years, and some things that have made a big impact. And then, let's hit on some of the big things first that to focus on, and then we can get more granular.
Yeah, I think consistency is the biggest. If you're keeping logs on the fire, you then have the ability to sort of get more nuanced and look at trends and figure out what is hitting and what isn't. But if all you're focused on is I need to put the best video out there, and you spend all day on that, you lose the consistency piece. And on top of that, that video might not go that far.
Right.
So if you're keeping logs on the fire and you give yourselves time to sort of workshop things that you think might work, that's the best way to do it. But if you're workshopping and not putting anything out, you would be shocked at the stuff that works. So making sure that you're
it really
constantly...
is amazing of this is going to crush, and then it just falls flat. And then you throw out, hey, this is just, I need a filler for today. You put that out and it blows up.
Yeah, and not a filler, but you're making sure that it still looks, a certain way. But you'd be shocked at what works and what doesn't. And there have been several times where I've been like, this is going to crush. I can't wait. My phone is going to overheat because there's just going to be so many notifications, and it doesn't play. And then the things that do play, that have played for us in the 2 years, has just been, it's been mystifying. So making sure that you have,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, just making sure that you have content out there, and making sure that you, and I haven't had to stress this on you, you understand this, but if you're working for someone and someone is your Tim Bratz, they need to know that you need stuff to push. And if they're shooting once every 2 months, that's not enough. That'll get eaten up very, very quickly. It surprises me how quickly, even when I'm editing stuff a minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, that kind of stuff, how quickly stuff gets eaten up. So if you don't have somebody who's willing to shoot on a Wednesday for 4 or 5 hours every Wednesday, or at least twice a month, you're going to run out of your ability to be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, we batch our activities, and that's a hard thing, is like, oh, I got to add something else to my plate. But what we do is we batch, we shoot content every Wednesday from essentially, I don't know, 9:30 in the morning until, I mean, it's almost 3 o'clock now. You know, this is one of the longer days, but we usually shoot for at least 2 to 4 hours every Wednesday and just hammer out as much content as we can. So that way we can post, what do? We do 2 YouTube videos per week, and then we cut those up into reels on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything else.
And between me and Cameron, you know, that's not just me. A lot of it is, the majority of it is Cam putting out the longer form stuff, and I just kind of pick from that. And sometimes we do things that are exclusive just for TikTok and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, consistency is the big one, and making sure not only that you're pushing out content consistently, but making it look in a way that makes people understand and recognize, oh, this is Tim Bratz's stuff.
Like congruent type of a vibe to it, or congruent type of a, yeah, I mean, what the captions that all are the same color all the time, or the title page, or the thumbnail that's the same type of a vibe all the time.
Right, and if you decide you're going to change it, there's something to be said for that. But if you're not, if you say, oh, I'm going to go this way with it, and then you move everything that way, that's one thing. But to kind of haphazardly be putting stuff somewhere, it just doesn't look professional when people have the ability.
Yeah.
You know, the other really big thing that I've had to learn is, you know, me personally, I am not going to get the feedback that I want on a consistent basis, in the sense that nobody is going to be saying, hey, that's a great video, or hey, maybe we can do that. And it's a plus because you don't have your thumb on us, and you're not saying, hey, this is good today, hey, this is bad. You certainly obviously have suggestions from time to time, but I used to wake up in the TV world with the ratings from the night before. And to me, it's like, tell me, like Instagram, tell me what you want me to do.
Yeah.
I'll do that. TikTok, tell me what you want me to do. Tell me how to get more views. And sort of being okay with the idea that you're not going to get that feedback, and that you have to go seek what they want you to do. And sometimes even that doesn't work, and sort of being okay with that.
You can look up analytics on how certain videos did, but then it's up to
Correct.
you to figure out what was the differentiator during that.
Correct.
Or you can look up, you know, trending themes of, I don't know, songs that, or little dances, or like any of that kind of stuff, of what's like catchy right then and there, right? Because those kinds of things, once they catch the algorithm, there's a higher likelihood that yours will catch too, right?
Right. And the other part of that, yes, everything you said is correct. But another part of one of the reasons why I don't get so tied up into the performance of every single video is we're putting out enough, and I've heard you mention before, people have come to you and done deals based on your social media, just based on following you. So every video you put out could potentially be the video that somebody sees that they have $3 million they want to deploy. So getting tied up and making it perfect, or making it something that has to be a certain way, you're going to get paralyzed by that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's as important to have like a perfectly edited video. I think there's a higher response to the authenticity and the genuine feel of me losing track of my thoughts, or tripping over a word or two, or just like, dude, as opposed to some perfectly edited video that's not what you get when you meet me in person, right? Like, there's plenty of people that we've met and I know from social media, and everything is like perfectly edited, and it seems like their train of thought is so succinct and so efficient all the time. And I guess that's part of the communication of social media, but at the same time, I don't know. And then you meet the person, you meet them in person, and you're like, wow, dude, I'm pulling teeth in order to have a conversation with this individual, and they're like a big social media star, right? And so it's showing people that you're a real person, that you're authentic, and that I think aligns with people and makes them feel more comfortable with you,
right,
as opposed to like some celebrity type status that everything's perfect, your hair's always perfect, your clothes are always perfect. Like I don't know, it's just not my vibe, so that's not the tribe that I attract either.
right.
And I don't know, I feel like you got to stay in some sort of pretend to be somebody else. If that's, I would rather see people in creating their content just be you, right? If you like Gary Vee and you cuss all the time, then you should cuss on your social media, right? If you go to church all the time, talk about going to church, right? If you are with your kids all the time, with your family all the time, then shoot videos with your family. If you like to grill out, then shoot videos about grilling and talk about, your business while you're grilling. It doesn't, it's just be you, be authentic version of you, and then you're going to attract people who like doing that kind of stuff, and they're going to feel more comfortable watching your videos, in your presence, and wanting to do more business with you.
And being aware that, and you mentioned it too, you have to educate, inform, or
Inspire.
entertain, and inspire. You can't just do one thing, and people don't want to hear all of the time about how you're an expert in your industry. They want to see you be a little more well-rounded, and we try to provide that, on your social media, is to make sure people understand that there is a person behind your portfolio. Yeah. And there are a lot of people who aren't interested in showing that side, or I'll show it over here, but I don't want to show it over here, or I'll have two separate things. And your willingness to sort of put everything out there is essential.
Yeah, and I think listen, you can do one, you can do the other, or whatever that looks like. It's just, I don't know. I would rather, for me, I think you can connect with people easier if they see your family life with the business elements of it. And that allows us to then connect more, connect faster, build relationships, build better relationships, I would say, and do it that way. So yeah, man, I think the big thing is just staying consistent with social media, and you guys have done, between you and Cam, man, you guys have done a great job. Yeah. I appreciate all the hard work, and I love that we're just getting started. I was looking at the Beast, Mr. Beast, whatever, on social media. He's the highest earning YouTuber on YouTube. The guy makes boatloads of money. I think he makes almost $100 million a year, maybe more. And he posted the other day like what his video count was annually since he got started in 2012, I want to say, making YouTube videos. And he had like 15,000 total views. Yeah. No, I think it was like 4,500 his first year, 15,000 his second year. It dropped down to 7,500 his third year. And then it went back up to like, 40,000 his fourth year. And then something caught in year 5, right? And he had like 400,000 views or something. And then it like doubled or more than doubled every year. Holy shit. Bad brakes on the school bus over here. But it doubled like every single year. Right. And that's what people don't see. And we all want this viral video to hit in year 1. But it's like the 3-year principle that we talk about. It's like year 1, you're planting the seeds, right? Get an understanding of how do the algorithms even work? Like what's important to show or not show, or all those things. Year 2, you're continuing to cultivate new relationships, new followers, while you're deepening relationships with your existing followers. Year 3, you start all of a sudden getting some momentum, getting some traction. Year 4 and 5 and beyond, that's really when the momentum finally sets in. And that's what's exciting, right? We've been doing this consistently for not even 2.5 years. And I can't imagine what this looks like in another 2.5 years.
Happy to be along for the ride. And it's really, having that to sort of obsess over, and knowing that you know, that type of going from a big company where nobody really knows your name to now that the people that we have, that you've surrounded me with, has been, you know, incredible. Not to mention the lifestyle I now get to enjoy. You know, I'm not at work at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and I can't thank you enough. And it certainly is a pleasure to not only call you one of my best friends, but to call you the boss now. It's I never really thought it would happen. It's
weird, yeah.
But
and I don't see I see us working together, not
sure.
you for me. You know, that's never like been my vibe. And
I'm well aware that I'm working for you, and that I have no problem with that. And I think that's there's a healthy amount of understanding, you know, those kind of priorities and where things fall. So,
well, I appreciate you, brother, dude. It's a ton of fun. It's an honor to have you on the team, and just excited to see where things lead us over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
Love it.
Hey, hopefully you got some good takeaways. Jed's got an awesome story, very inspiring, cool to see. Kind of, you know, I think there's people in your network, in your circle right now. You understand their work ethic, you understand what their core values are, and as close of friends as Jed and I are, I know that he wouldn't let me down, and he knows that I wouldn't let him down. And so we can have a candid conversation of bringing him on, working with friends. Hey, man, just give me a heads up if it's ever not a good fit, or if you have a problem with something, dude, bring it to me. Let's communicate. And because we have such a tight friendship, we're able to work together and do some awesome things together. So it's a huge privilege to have him on the team. Excited that we get to work together with one of my best buddies, and now that he's living down in Charleston too. So appreciate you guys being here. Give me some takeaways or ask any questions that you might have in the comments. If you would, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We got more Spilling the Beans every Sunday for you. I'll see you next week.